Before our last segment, we had a couple of callers talk about the Confederate Memorial in St. Louis, the controversy that's brought up. And our next guest is Sharon Tyus. Sharon Tyus, Alderwoman Sharon Tyus, is the Democratic Ward 1 representative on the St. Louis Board of Aldermen. She was first elected to this seat in 2013. She won a new term in the general election on April 4th, 2017. She previously represented Ward 20 from 1991 to 2003. Alderwoman, how are you?
I'm fine, Mr. Arps. How are you?
Prison.
How are
I
you?
told you when we said, please call me Chris. We kind of have history.
Yes, we do, but I tend to be formal, and I'm sorry. I will call you Chris.
No,
I tend
that's
to
okay.
call people Mr. or Miss.
I've met Alderwoman Tyus when I worked for Senator Talent back in around 2003 or 4. And Alderwoman Tyus at that time was the Alderwoman of the 20th Ward. And she gave me, the late State Representative Sherman Parker, and one of my D.C. colleagues from Senator Talent's office a tour of her ward. And so we got a tour of the ward. And I've got to tell you, although all of you who have Alderwoman Tyus as your Alderwoman, you are very lucky because she really takes her job serious. We were driving around the ward and she was seeing people or cars that were abandoned and was like, I got to talk to them and tell them, hey, you can't have that. So she really cares about her neighborhood. And as I said, we're glad to have you here with us.
Thank you so much.
Now you are the sponsor of the Board Bill 37, which is a bill to remove the Confederate Memorial, or what exactly does the bill is the language of the bill?
The bill language actually speaks to any Confederate memorial, monument, or flags that are in any of our city parks. It just so happens everybody is focusing on Forest Park, but it asks for a list of all such monuments, flags, or memorials, and then it specifically does say to remove the one in Forest Park, but also a plan to remove others and flags and any other such memorandum, unless it's in the History Museum. I am not trying to remove history. In fact, although some other people on the committee have another idea, I actually have no problem if it were moved to the History Museum and we had a more thorough discussion of what the Confederacy was and what the Civil War was. I don't believe that's appropriate having it sitting out there with just a monument in a place that does not mark any place where a Civil War occurrence happened and was not put there until 50 years after the actual Civil War.
Mm-hmm. Alderman, what do you think? You know, I agree with your bill. I personally think that the memorial should be removed, maybe taken to a museum. And as I said earlier, the Post-Dispatch gave me a different perspective on this, and it was an editorial that they wrote 100 years ago that was actually in favor of the memorial. And the reason that they were in favor of the memorial, not so much for white supremacy or for, you know, making the Confederacy look good, but it was for North and South reconciliation. That, of course, the Civil War was less than 50 years old, and there was still a lot of harsh feelings between the North and South, and that the reason that this statute was put here for reconciliation, to bring people together. My argument is, you know, that's fine. Black people were second-class citizens back then, so we didn't what our feelings meant didn't mean anything. But 104 years later, this statute is bringing division. It's not bringing people together.
I would agree, and that's exactly why I think it should come down. We did not have a say. I think if you would have talked to black people back then, I'm not, and I can't speak for all black people, and I don't pretend
Sure.
to, but I think a good deal of them would have had a problem back then. I think that when they put it up there, it's a sign of intimidation. I'm a military family. My family, Tyus, is a military family.
Mm-hmm.
And they served in war since the Korean War. My sister served 23 years. They fought for the United States of America, not for the Confederacy, okay? So there is no Confederacy. They lost. I have never seen any place else where they put up memorials and monuments and wave the flag of the losers. The South lost. And there are people who say, well, it wasn't about slavery. I totally disagree. And if you read any history, it was. And that it was about states' rights. What did the right the states wanted to do? They wanted the right to have slaves. That's an immoral cause. It was not a historic cause. It wasn't a free people. It was to enslave people. And I think that's why it has to be in a museum, along with Talking about all the different reasons why people thought we fought the Civil War.
Adam Schwadron is in the studio with us, Alderwoman. He's got a question for you.
Good afternoon, Alderwoman.
Good afternoon. How are you?
I'm doing
Adam.
well.
I can't hear your last name, so I'm going to call you Adam. Please forgive me.
That's quite all right.
I can't either after a few drinks.
So I just have the devil's advocate question here.
Sure.
Granted, I do support taking the statue and moving it to a museum or some other place where, the reverence that is intended by the statue can still be seen to represent the history, kind of as your bill has introduced. But also the Pandora's box issue of, so say we start doing this with these statues, what about other statues that people may have offense to, such as the Friedrich Jahn statue that is in Forest Park as well? Most people probably couldn't even tell you where this statue is, but in passing it through all the walks through that lovely park with my wife and children, I did a little research on him and found out that he was a huge anti-Semite, and some people have actually considered him the father of the National Socialism movement in Germany. So, as a Jewish American, finding this out, that there's a statue of this anti-Semite, that's a little disconcerting. So, there's that issue, and then what if, as I already said, people have issues with other statues because of their history?
And so what I have learned, I'm a 61-year-old African-American female, law degree from Washington University, is that the future changes, and we don't get to control it. We try to write wills and everything else to control what happens in the future. We don't. I cannot tell you that other people may not come with some other things they want to change. I don't necessarily think change is bad. For me personally, I know it's been a good thing, because if we had not changed the Constitution twice, I would not have been able to vote. So, and it's in the context. Are you trying to eradicate history, or are you just trying to say there is a more appropriate place to present history? And so I think you have to look at each individual case on a case-by-case analysis.
Alderman, what would you say to critics who would say, we just saw last week probably 7 murders in North St. Louis. Tragically, a young 4-year-old girl died from her injuries after her and her parents were shot. What would you say to critics who say that, I can understand the passion of the Confederate monument, but the African-American community in North St. Louis has a lot more pressing things to worry about than Confederate memorials? What would you say to that?
First of all, I would say that she was 7 years old. I actually have her listed in my Facebook page. That I can multitask. You can't do everything at once. Some things are big projects, and if you ever rehab the house, sometimes you cannot get the big project done, but you can get something that maybe other people think is of a lesser magnitude done. Okay, maybe you can redo the floors, but you can't pay for the plumbing. The murders in North St. Louis, there are some things that can be done, and many times I have taken the stance, and people haven't listened. One of the things they did in St. Louis that I thought was a big mistake, and I have opposed it, and most people don't agree with me. I did not think that the city should have taken the police under the city. I was one of the people opposed to that for a lot of reasons, and one of them is that I didn't think we had set up a mechanism to take it over, and it's become a boondoggle. Right now, we don't have a police board. Citizens have no place right now. If you want to go on a monthly basis and complain, you cannot. One of the major other things that I oppose with the police, which I think that police are some of the solutions to the murders, is that we kept making the districts bigger. When you go over to North St. Louis in the 6th district, it goes from the Chain of Rocks all the way to Grand. That's much too large a district where there's a big crime. So, and I was opposed to it back when Clarence Harlan was the mayor when they made the superstation. So, as an older person, I can take a position, and I'm very vocal about my positions and when I'm in opposition. But at the end of the day, I'm not the mayor, or I'm not the majority of the Board of Aldermen, or I wasn't the police chief, so some things I don't get to do. But I do work on it on a daily basis. One of the things I think helps with murders is keeping a good community where people have rules and regulations, and where you have people who, if it's not their parent, if someone else in the community will parent the children.
Okay, I'm not trying to wrap you. We're just about out of time, but I want to thank you so much, Alderwoman Tyus, for being on the show today, and I want to talk to you after.